Everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aspitillo.ai, and I'm really honored to have Charlene Li with me today to talk about her book, Winning with AI, the 90-day blueprint for success. Charlene, this was an amazing book. Thank you so much for writing it with your co-author, Katia Walsh. It's the book that everybody needs right now if you're thinking of doing AI projects. So that's my pitch for you. Charlene, where can people find you?
Well, thank you so much for talking about the book. You can find me on LinkedIn and also on my website, charleneli.com. Has all of my writings, the book, of course, and also a great way to stay in touch.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm honored that you come on today. So thank you so much. What was the inspiration behind the book?
Well, we could see that AI was starting to get really popular. And I came to Katya, who I've known for over 25 years, and said, I'm writing this book about AI. And she was one of the world's first chief AI officer. So, of course, I wanted to tap into her expertise. And she says to me, I should write this book with you. And my response was, of course, you should write this book with me. She's a dear friend, and it's been a wonderful journey. And we wrote the book because people wanted to know, where do we start?
Yeah.
How do we start to create value with AI? Just not how to use it or how it works, but how do we use it to create enterprise level value? So that's how we started the book, and that's how we structured the book. And it's a week by week, over 12 weeks, 90 days, for you to create a full fledged, detailed roadmap on how you're going to use AI to support your business objectives.
So just to say, Andrew has joined. Andrew is watches us watches us a lot, actually. So thank you, Andrew, for joining us. So just to say, Charlene, yeah, as I say, I really loved it, and I love the way. And I was saying this to you just before we went live about the way that you structured and said, "This is what you do in week one. This is what you do in week two. This is what you do in week three." Because that's what I need anyway from a structure perspective. So,
Right. And we really struggle with this. It seems kind of obvious now that the book is out there, but we really struggle with, what do you do first? Where do you do second? How do you figure out what your strategy is with your business? And do you really need an AI strategy? And one of the things we figured out is, you don't need an AI strategy. You already have a business strategy.
yeah,
Now you need to use AI to support your business strategy. So make no mistake, having a separate AI strategy from your business strategy is a mistake.
yeah,
It all needs to be
we're
integrated
going
and
to come to
supported.
that, because you said there's a whole list of things right at the beginning of the book where you go where you say the things this book tells you that others don't, and there's a whole bunch of those. So in the book, you and Katia state that pilots are counterproductive, and that leaders should build for scale or not build at all. But in a massive risk-averse organization, pilots are the primary way nervous executives uh, buy down risk before committing millions. If we skip the pilot, how do we prevent a massive, highly visible public failure from killing the entire AI momentum?
Right. Well, I think there are things called the experiments where the purpose of your efforts is to learn. Those we fully believe in. The problem with pilots is that nobody really believes it's going to be real. And so, therefore, nobody puts real effort against it.
Yeah,
So, if you have a new AI pilot, you go to IT and say, I need access to data. Well, when it's a sanctioned project, then we'll do that hard work. You go to marketing, go, we need customer data. Well, when it's a real project, we'll pull all that data for you. So it's everyone can just kick the can down the road and not take it seriously when it's a pilot. And so our belief is that unless it's seen as strategic, and you can think big, is what we say, be strategic about things, but then start small. Start with one small part of it to make sure it works, and you can edge your way into it. So that addresses both the risk averseness, but also addresses that this is something really important that our executives and our board are going to care about. And it's so important. We're going to put all our resources behind it to make it successful.
um, a 90-day blueprint is incredibly exciting, but we know that in Fortune 500 companies, simply getting procurement, legal, and security to sign off an enterprise SaaS contract can take 6 months. Is a 90-day timeline realistic for an enterprise transformation, or is it forcing a mechanism designed to expose how broken a company's internal bureaucracy actually is?
I think any sort of transformation is going to expose how broken organizations are, because that's why you have to do the transformation. We don't promise a transformation in 90 days. In 90 days, you'll have a blueprint, and then begins the really hard work. But you need a map, a roadmap to follow to be able to pull everybody to be on the same page, that you're singing to the same song sheet, and especially going at the same tempo. Without this, what you have are departments that go fast in one area and not strategic in other areas, and maybe don't do anything because nobody's encouraging and making sure that they are coming along. With a roadmap that goes across the entire enterprise, everybody knows what they're doing. And again, this is not to govern every single thing that you're doing. If you're in a department and you're trying to figure out how to use AI to write social media content, go for it. It's not going to be at that enterprise level value. What we're talking about are these big efforts that go across the organization, goes across departments, and impacts, again, the strategic outcomes of the company.
You make the contrarian claim that leaders don't need clean data to get started with AI, yet every data scientist on earth will tell you garbage in, garbage out. What is the threshold where good enough data actually becomes dangerous when feeding it with a predictive or generative AI model?
Well, this is why you have to constantly test for your outcomes. And there becomes a threshold where you begin to trust the outcomes that the AI is generating from the data. And until you know, again, you have to set those parameters at the very beginning and start working with the data. And here's the thing, you can use AI to clean up the data, to understand the data, to put a knowledge and context graph on top of the data so that it originates the information in a cleaner way. The reality is, data is like your house. You have a housekeeper who comes and cleans it beautifully. The minute you step into it, it gets dirty. And data is constantly being generated. So there is no way to have clean, perfect data. So really figuring out what's the minimal data quality that you need to get the results that you trust to get the work done.
Okay. So back to the strategy. Your core thesis is that organizations don't need an AI strategy. They need AI in service of their existing business strategy. But what happens if a company's existing business strategy is fundamentally flawed or outdated? Doesn't injecting AI into a bad strategy just help them do the wrong things faster?
Well, that's a different story. That is, again, what I believe is that AI exposes when that strategy is not fit for the times anymore. And so, therefore, you have an existing business strategy, whether it's good or not, that's a starting point. And so what AI can do in that exploration is it can say we can reinforce it, we can potentially even change it and shift it, or do a 180 and go in a different direction because now you understand more where your customers are going. So outdated strategy, at least start with the strategy and see where it makes sense. And what's so interesting is when you use AI to stress test your strategy, it becomes even stronger. So again, one of the best examples of this is somebody came to me and said, "This is what our strategy looks like. Here are 7 goals that we have.
Yeah.
The first 6 are the usual suspects, and number 7 is use AI to accomplish the first 6."
Okay.
And that's the right way to be thinking about it.
Mm.
AI is in service of your business strategy. And if you think your business strategy isn't strong enough, AI can pressure test it and help you develop it to be even better.
Because we quite often get, I think we see people out on LinkedIn, on the internet, basically saying you need to completely rethink things altogether. Um,
Potentially,
hmm,
but you may also have some really good foundations for your strategy. I mean, it's the way I think about it, in a world where everything is unknown, everything seems to be changing, start with the things that you know.
yeah,
And this is when I work with executives is what do you feel confident about? You know your purpose, you know your mission, you have your North Star, you have your strategy, you know your customers, you know your stakeholders, your employees, your investors, you know them really well. And be absolutely clear what that is and make sure your executive team, everybody up and down the organization knows what that is. Then you can start modifying things, adjusting things. Because unless you're all on the same page and starting from the same place, you're just going to feel chaotic.
yeah.
So it's start with building those foundations. And that's where we start in the book. It's like, what are the foundational things you have to have in place?
You write that AI actually makes human work harder, even as it automates tasks. This flies in the face of the marketing hype from tech vendors promising seamless ease. How do you convince an already exhausted, burnt out workforce to embrace a technology that is going to make their jobs more intellectually demanding?
Well, I think that the problem right now is that there's a lot of AI slop that
Yeah,
is created. And again, we're still in this formative stage. I mean, the AI is incredibly powerful, but it's still very, very early. Again, with new releases, we're just seeing how much more capable they are. Uh, Claude just came out with Fable 5. It's incredibly powerful,
yeah,
incredibly expensive. And so as token costs get cheaper, as the models become more powerful, we're going to see better results. Hallucinations already are pretty much non-existent if you build the model and use it in the right way.
yeah,
But it takes some effort in the beginning to make things work. And what I find with organizations, they know they have AI tools available, and they don't have the time and the space to be able to practice and be able to get to the point where they can use it in their job. And organizations will come to me and say, "We just don't have time." And I think that's very short-sighted. It's not coming from their top executives to say, figure out how to use AI to make your job easier, to remove the repetitive and monotonous work so that you can do the intellectually interesting and challenging work, and do so in a way that doesn't create more work for people downstream. So these are real growing pains
yeah.
we're establishing here.
Yeah, I see that as growing pains. Yeah, most definitely. You've spoken about how AI forces us to rethink entry level roles. Historically, young professionals learn their trade by doing the grunt work, synthesizing reports, organizing data, writing basic copy. If AI takes over 100% of these tasks, where does the next generation of leadership gain their foundational experience to eventually run the company?
Well, I would use the equivalent in accounting with doing manual math without a calculator. Just because you use a calculator doesn't mean that you can't understand. You have to understand mathematical concepts. And the same thing with these tools is you have to know what good looks like. And so what good looked like in the past was writing the content. Now it's about evaluating and curating the content. It's editing the content. And it's also knowing what questions to ask. So the craft is different because the tools now require different types of expertise. So I recently worked with a bunch of architects, and it used to be about drawing the lines, rendering them, everything. You still have to do that, but now you have tools that can help you do that in a better and faster way. The expertise, the apprenticeship still has to be there, the learning, but it can be accelerated and improved on because now you can do multiple iterations and fine tune and hone that judgment. So you can create 20 pieces of copy, 20 drawings, 20 videos, and work with somebody who's senior to evaluate, understand which ones are better, how you did a better job in this one and that one, and accelerate your learning in a different and better way too.
So Andrew's asked a question, which is, if the old adage is true, if it's not broke, don't fix it. How do we get a company that change is good and should be part of the continuous improvement?
I would say that the corollary to that is that's the way we do things around here,
Mm,
right? And that's great, but could we do things in a better way? And what are the assumptions that underlie that it's good enough? And so it may be good enough, but let's ask the question, could it get better? Could we do this in a better way? And I guarantee you, if you're not asking it, your competitors are asking it, and your employees are asking it, and the employees don't have an outlet for that creativity, for that agency to go and do things in a better way, they will leave. Your best employees will leave and go to a place where that type of creativity, that level of entrepreneurship is valued. So you can stay the same every day, stay exactly the way you are, and enjoy the status quo. But very soon, the status quo in the present becomes the past,
yeah.
and you become quickly outdated. So I believe that in order to maintain order, you have to constantly change. And this is the conundrum that many leaders don't understand, having the wisdom to hold both of these two things in the same place. Because the fact of the matter is the world is changing all around you. If you stay the same, you will quickly fall behind.
Yeah. You advocate for the Goldilocks Goldilocks governance, just enough structure to encourage experimentation, but not enough to choke innovation. But in a highly regulated sectors like banking or healthcare, too much governance is the law. How do you find a middle ground when the regulatory penalty for a single AI hallucination could be a multi-million-dollar fine?
Well, I served on the Singapore Ministry of Health Regulatory Agency to help them write their new AI policies that just came out in March. And one of the things that you realize, you are actually blessed in some ways because you have very clear regulations you have to follow. And so that becomes again the starting point for you to think about how you're going to use AI. You have uh, to maintain the highest levels of transparency, of data security, privacy. All these things are already good practices that you have in your organization. And so taking those and extending them into AI becomes a further refinement of this, not a whole rewrite. And so, therefore, when regulations come down the pipe, you can look at them and go, we are already doing these things. And compliance becomes a matter of paperwork. And so, if you keep to the highest level of what you would expect your customers would want, then you will always be in the right place. So Goldilocks governance is, how do you have just enough governance in place to make sure you're abiding by those high standards, but not so much that you're throttling it, you're
Yeah.
choking it off. And when you have clarity, that's when you can go fast. That's when you can develop things. And when we wrote the regulations for the Ministry of Health in Singapore, we lay things out in a way that AI could flourish and develop and thrive. So just enough guidance to make sure everyone is making sure they're working with each other in particular and taking into account the things they have to pay attention to, but then giving them tremendous latitude in terms of what they could actually, within the parameters of what that container looks like.
The book introduces the 6 quarter walk, a rolling 18-month roadmap. But in the world of AI, 18 months, many of the models we rely on today don't even exist. How can a leader realistic plan 6 quarters out when the very capability of the technology might radically shift 3 times before they finish that walk?
The way I think about it is, we're not being specific about the technology. We're being very specific about the problem we're trying to solve and how we're going, by solving it, we're going to create value. So this is a roadmap of value creation. The actual nuts and bolts and tactics, what we're doing Q6, we have no idea. But we will refine this roadmap over time. So I like to say that the strategy, the outcomes you want are written in ink, and then the roadmap itself is written in pencil. So every quarter, at least every quarter, you're refining the roadmap for the next 5 quarters, and you're adding a sixth quarter. And the reason why we advocate an 18-month time frame is because these things can take a long time
Yeah.
to create that value. Transformation is hard work. And so unless you have a vision of where you want to be 18 months from now, you won't be able to start in a cohesive way,
Mm.
because you have to start today to get the outcomes you want in 18 months. So let's think about them now,
Yeah.
today, so that we can take that into account in planning, but also have the flexibility with both your plans, how you're actually going to do it, even with your budget, to meet the reality of the moment.
According to your research, only 22% of organizations have a defined AI roadmap, yet almost 100% claim they are AI first on their quarterly earnings. How do you advise board members to look past AI theatre, like simple API integrations, to see if a company is actually doing the hard work of operational transformation?
I again start with your strategic goals and say, how are you using AI to achieve them? It's what we've always asked board members to do. Board members are responsible for governance, for de-risking, but also, are you hitting your strategic goals? Are they clear? Are you understanding what those objectives are? Are we in agreement what they are? And how are you going to execute them? What are the barriers? What resources do you need? And AI fits into every single one of those areas of board responsibility. It's not a separate thing that sits elsewhere. It is core to everything that you do as a board member. And so, what I advise board members to do is, in the same way that you advise a board, you pick an area, you pick a lane that you want to focus on. That is your area of specialty and expertise, or an area of interest of yours. So one board member I know was really interested in AI ethics and went out and engaged an AI ethicist to come in and educate the board and themselves and the executives on what does that look like and mean for the organization. And was really pounding again, something that you normally wouldn't think about, but they tied it to their values. And so that kind of oversight from a board is absolutely essential.
Mm.
Thinking about how we're actually creating value against those strategic goals, again, board level activities, and then how is AI being incorporated into that? This is not about getting everyone to use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's not a strategy. That is an implementation of a technology.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that it drives any value at all.
Mm.
So this is a deeper conversation that each board member should be having with the executive team.
Excellent. Thank you. Final question. You and Katia look at how AI can actually scale and augment human qualities like empathy and self-reflection. But business history shows that when leaders get incredibly powerfully efficient tools, they usually use them to squeeze margins and cut headcounts, not deepen human connection. Are you concerned that leaders will weaponize the efficiency of your 90-day blueprint while ignoring the human-centric philosophy behind it?
That's why we put that in. And it's a leadership question. Is that, are you going to create value by simply 10xing one employee and replacing the other 9? Or are you going to say, I'm going to 10x all those 10 employees? Now I have 100x capability that I didn't have before. What could I do with that? And am I going to just become more efficient? And you can grow and grow and grow, or will I do things in a different way that is highly differentiated in a world where knowledge is a commodity now and everybody has the same tools and the same access to data? What's going to be our true differentiation? It's going to be our humanity.
Yeah.
How do we understand our customers better? How do we understand each other? How do we take the talents of our people and maximize that potential for them and for us as an organization? And so I think this is not just a sort of nice to have. I think it's absolutely essential to the way we think about our leadership of organizations. In that, are we looking for small v value or big V value?
Yeah.
And big V value, I believe, is not only looking at the efficiency, but also the expansion of our humanity to create things that we never could have imagined that we could before.
Charlene Li, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, Winning with AI, the 90-day blueprint for success. I really loved it, and I hope people have enjoyed the conversation today. If I wanted to get a copy of this, where can I get one from?
You can get it at any bookseller, especially online, like on Amazon. And you can also find links on it from my site, charleneli.com.
And we can get more information about you at charleneli.com and LinkedIn, I assume, as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about the book. It's been excellent, and really appreciate you